For more than 25 years by one man, Alexander Lukashenko, he faces an election in the next few weeks. Our Europe correspondent, Jean McKenzie, reports.
Snatched while they protest peacefully. It's indiscriminate. Police take anyone they can get hold of.
Dozens of police officers have just got out and started grabbing people off the street, pulling them out of the protest and throwing them into the van there.
Disgrace, they chant. After decades of living under this regime, people are weary. With elections approaching, hopes rest on this one woman's shoulders. Svetlana Tikhanovskaya is reluctantly running for president after her husband and the other main candidates were jailed and disqualified.
I had to sacrifice something for my husband and now for my country as well. Do you think you can win? We don't believe in honest elections. But I still believe that our president understands that his time is over. People don't want him anymore.
Not a single election since President Lukashenko took power in 1994 has been judged free or fair. But it's his response to coronavirus that's tipped people over the edge.
Здесь нет вирусов никаких. Вот ты же не заметила, что они летают?
The president has dismissed the virus as a psychosis and refused to lock down. This year's Victory Day was celebrated as usual, and people feel he's gambled with their lives. This doctor is risking his career to talk to us.
Наверное, если бы руководство поступало немного иначе и признало бы проблему, то, наверное, все-таки мы бы спасли бы еще ни одного бы человека при этом. Из медиков статистики, реальной статистики Минздрава не верит никто.
Reporting here is difficult.
Police, militia.
Soon it becomes clear we're being tracked.
What was that?
It's plainclothes, the same guys who usually throw the protesters into the vans.
This visible defiance of the government hasn't been seen for more than a decade. After an hour of arrests, police cover their faces. They're determined to clear the streets.
If you see military car, you need to run. Nothing more, just run.
This man will join hundreds already in jail. Some have spent weeks now in punishment cells without trial. Suddenly, our cameraman is taken. He's bundled into this van. He's one of 15 journalists to be detained tonight.
В нашей стране есть свобода выражения мнений.
Last night we watched people who were protesting against your government be taken off the streets and detained. Is that freedom of speech?
Ситуация в Европе, которая во многих странах происходит с использованием слезоточивого газа и водометов, поэтому по поводу реакции на несанкционированное уличное мероприятие, по-моему, в нашей стране она еще не особо жесткая.
These young Belarusians have been afraid their entire lives, but not anymore. Now they're ready to fight for change. They just don't know yet how ferociously the regime is prepared to fight back. Jean McKenzie, BBC News, Minsk.
A test for a strongman now. Well, Arctic polar bears could be close to extinction by the end of the century if the sea ice they depend on for survival continues to disappear. That's the stark warning from a new study. Our science correspondent Victoria Gill reports.
They are the poster species for climate change. Predators that depend on a fragile, transient hunting ground, the Arctic sea ice. And this study has shown that polar bears' survival is tied to that ice. The scientists used models based on satellite data to forecast sea ice decline in the Arctic over the coming decades. That enabled them to predict a future tipping point, to create a timeline for when the frozen hunting season will be too short for the bears to fatten up before the summer. At the current rate of warming, the researchers say all but a few polar bear populations will collapse before 2100.
With less fat, they're entering a fasting season that's longer than it used to be.
So is that now unavoidable? Are we already on that trajectory to just lose polar bears?
The trajectory that we're on now is not a good one. But if society gets its act together globally, we can halt global warming in time to save polar bears. And if we do, we'll benefit the rest of life on Earth, including ourselves.
The consequences of climate change are already playing out in the Arctic landscape.
So sad.
And this new timeline, the researchers say, is a stark reminder that the survival of an entire species is at stake. Victoria Gill, BBC News.
So sad.
I'm Laura Trevelyan. Thanks for watching and good night.
Funding for presentation of this program is provided by Babbel, an online program.
Anyway, it occurs to me, if I ever did perfect a time machine, I would just go into the past.
Curtain in there coming down really strong. Temperatures have also come down quite a bit. It is a very pleasant 76 in Paducah and 69 now in Princeton. Thankfully, that's the positive news from this otherwise very stormy afternoon. Not expecting any more severe thunderstorm warnings. Still some heavy rain and lightning, though, in Obion, Weakley, Dyer counties in northwest Tennessee. Flash flood warnings are still in effect for western Kentucky, but we are not expecting, again, anything like we had a few hours ago today. Now, we'll go over the forecast a little bit later about storm chances for the rest of this week. It looks like pretty busy forecast is ahead. Those details in just a few minutes.
To COVID-19 coverage now. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear is asking people to self-quarantine if they travel to any state with a COVID-19 positive test rate of more than 15%. Some of those states include South Carolina, Florida, and Arizona. Beshear also announced group gatherings in the state will be reduced from 50 people to 10 people.
We are just seeing too much spread from 50 people getting together in somebody's backyard or in their neighborhood. Now, I know 10 is different, but 10 is much more manageable. It can contain the spread.
As limiting group gatherings to 10 people should help prevent Kentucky from becoming a highly infected state. Happening now, the Paducah Public Schools Board of Education will vote on changes to the calendar for the year. Local 6's Jack Kane live for us in Paducah. So, Jack, what could these changes mean for parents and students?
Todd, at the start of the school,
political enemies should rot in prison. And perhaps most shocking of all, he has failed spectacularly to lead as the country faces a raging pandemic with more than 130,000 dead. Instead, he denies basic science and continues to peddle the fantasy that it will all just go away on its own. And now even some Republicans who from day one made their bargain to follow Donald Trump to the gates of hell have concluded that they must work around him. An advisor to the Republican governor of Texas.
There she is, working her prime time. They have given her an advancement, and she has moved up the totem pole, and she's no longer working in night sectors, but now she's working in prime time sectors. Congratulations. She has done a marvelous job in her career towards stepping up to the plate and becoming a good, well-known commentator in delivering and issuing out the news.
Texas told the New York Times the president got bored with the pandemic. So now they're turning to the vice president instead. And all of that has played out with just 105 days until the next election. In a few moments, I'll talk with the woman who beat Donald Trump by 3 million votes in 2016, only to be denied the presidency by the Electoral College, Hillary Clinton. But my first guest is the man who will face Donald Trump in November, former Vice President Joe Biden. Former Vice President Biden, thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations. It's a big day.
Thank you so much,
Thanks
sir.
for having me on.
I really appreciate it. No, we're very glad to have you on. I have so many questions for you. But the first one I have to ask you, you came into office with President Obama at the heels of a massive recession, on the heels of a very unpopular war that ripped this country apart and separated us from some of our allies. That was a tough entrance for the Barack Obama and Joe Biden administration. If you are elected, sir, you will face what I would argue is even a worse situation. We have right now paramilitary or federal troops on the streets of American cities. We have people crying out for police reform. And we have this pandemic. that is catastrophic. So many people have died. You've talked a lot about it and about the tragedies. I want to let you listen to Donald Trump this weekend, talking about that very pandemic, and talking about other countries' response to it, and let you respond.
No country has ever done what we've done in terms of testing. We are the envy of the world. You look at other countries, they don't even do testing. You know, I said it's going to disappear. I'll say it again.
But
it's going to disappear. And I'll be right. I don't think so.
How do you respond to that?
I think he's right. No country has ever done what we've done. Walk away. There is no leadership here. He actually has zero. He's surrendered. He talked about, you remember early on, this is going to go away in a few days. This is going to be gone tomorrow. You're going to wake up and be gone. He talked about how we're going to be in a position where we were going to be able to lead the world, etc. And he was going to be a wartime president fighting this virus. Well, he raised the white flag. He has no idea what to do. He's zero. It's only one thing he has in mind. How does he win re-election? And it doesn't matter how many people get COVID and or die from COVID, because he fears that if the economy is strapped as badly as it is today, that in fact he is going to be in trouble. That's what this is all about. I've never seen a president who has been so self-serving in the conduct of the office.
And, you know, one of the ways I think he believes he's going to get reelected is by going back to the playbook that he used before to try to go after Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, which was passed, of course, during the administration with yourself and President Obama, and to go after immigrants again. I want to let you listen to what he thinks that the Supreme Court decisions recently have given him the license to do on those two issues.
We're signing a health care plan within 2 weeks, a full and complete health care plan that the Supreme Court decision on DACA gave me the right to do. So we're going to sign an immigration plan, a health care plan, and various other plans.
What do you make of a president of the United States who's threatening again to take health care away from 20, 30 million people as his campaign strategy, and again going back to the idea of kicking out immigrants?
Look, this guy has no sense of empathy or concern for people. People are dying. Families are bereft. People are so worried about being able to see their grandmoms and grandpops for fear that they may get the COVID. I don't understand it. He has absolutely zero sense of empathy. Have you ever heard a word him talking about how badly he feels about the losses, about the emptiness? Those folks who've lost somebody feel like they've been dragged into a dark, deep hole in the middle of their chest. They don't know what to do. They're scared to death. And what's the president do? He talks about taking away health insurance completely. And he says he's going to replace it with what? He's been talking about that forever. Zero. It is absolutely, I quite frankly don't get it. And I don't understand how he thinks it appeals to the American people. Overwhelming, the American people want us to keep Obamacare and improve on it, not get rid of it in the middle of a pandemic with hundreds of thousands of people ill and dying, and he wants to take away health insurance? My Lord.
Well, you know, if you become president, if you're inaugurated on January 20th next year, it will be then your problem to deal with this pandemic, which, you know, we have to assume will still be raging because not enough is being done to try to beat it back. Walk us through what you would do differently, and assuming it actually by then will be worse.
Well, first of all, you may recall, Joy, I all the way back in January warned him this pandemic was coming. I talked about what we needed to do. I talked early on about the Defense Act that allows him to go and say to a company, manufacture the following things, and so on. So I mean, he has made every serious mistake, and he has absolutely bludgeoned people who disagree with him and the Republican governors and the like. So number one, I don't know how bad it's going to be. It's going to just be worse because he's doing nothing to deal with what he said was going to go away. It's going to get worse. I speak with docs every 3 times a week, sometimes 4 times a week for an hour and 15 minutes. They predict among them that there are going to be over 200,000 dead by the time we get to Election Day. they predict that this is just going to get worse and worse. So I'm going to be faced with a circumstance, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected president, where we're going to have to take significant action to do a number of things. One, you need more testing. You need to be able to test and trace. You need to be in a position where you're able to insist that everyone wear masks, everyone socially distanced, that businesses do not open if they cannot do that. We need to make sure that people are in a position where they can, in fact, maintain their businesses through the stimulus that's been out, that the Congress has put out. We need to keep people on their feet. We need to make sure health insurance, we have health insurance, as well as making sure no one has to pay for contracting COVID and or being treated for COVID. There's a whole range of things we have and must do and can do. In addition, I would suggest right now, and I've urged the president to do this, right now there may be a vaccine, God willing, after the first of the year. We should have a command officer now. We should be spending $25 billion to put together exactly how that will be distributed to over 300 million Americans. How will we do that? Where will it go? How will we get it done well? It needs planning. And without any planning between now and election day, now and the time we're sworn in, it's going to make it incredibly more difficult to get anything done. And that's why we're going to need a major public health corps provision, a whole range of things I won't bore you with now. But it's going to be very, very, very difficult.
You know, the current president, is planning to go back to doing daily briefings, and you'll recall that these were the briefings at which he suggested drinking bleaches of certain, types in order to cure COVID. Is this something that you have thought about, maybe countering that by doing briefings of your own?
Well, I have, but, and I've done a number of them, as you recall, Joy, when he was doing it, but there still is this overwhelming preoccupation with the president. And he's the president, so I get that part. But the idea that we cover everything he says, even when I never thought I'd see a time when senior and major reporters like you are watching something the president says, and as he speaks, and I don't mean just anybody who's progressive, I mean across the board, saying like Chris Wallace, that's not true, Mr. President. That's not what happened, Mr. President. But there seems to be such a fascination with covering everything he says. And by the way, the words of president matter, no matter how incompetent the president is. The words of a president can make the market rise or fall. They can take us to war. They can bring peace. They can do a lot. And so as president of the United States, the first thing I'm going to do is stand up and talk sense and be honest with the American people, level with them, tell them exactly what I know and what's going to happen, and take responsibility for what's happening. But it's going to take an awful lot, Joy, and I don't know what I'm going to be left with, assuming I'm elected president.
And in order to do all of that, you first have to get elected, and one of the barriers to that is foreign interference. So you've talked about the fact that you issued a statement saying that you are aware that foreign interference is already happening, and you're saying that if elected president, I'll treat foreign interference in our election as an adversarial act that significantly affects the relationship between the United States and the interfering nation's government. I have no desire to escalate tensions with Russia or any other country, but if any other foreign power recklessly chooses to interfere in our democracy, I won't hesitate to respond. Donald Trump has not responded. Are you prepared to fight an election in a little over 100 days with Russia and China potentially involved? And what can you do about it?
Well, the only thing we can do about it is be prepared. We have a whole group of lawyers who are going out to every voter registration physician in the states, the secretaries of state, making sure that they, in fact, have a game plan as to how they're going to allow the voting to take place. We are continuing to push what Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in the House did. They passed money to allow for voting in place, to have not only voting by mail, but also voting in place by providing the necessary equipment for social distancing, sanitation. 10,000 people have volunteered. We're going to try to get them plugged in as poll workers, not for us, but running the mechanisms in the states that they work for the state operations. Because last time, I don't want this excuse that the reason why we closed down, I'm making the number up, there are 30 polling places in a predominantly minority neighborhood, but now there's only 5 because we don't have enough poll workers. So we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that we are making contact with every governor and every person in charge of the electoral process in their states. I can't do anything about what is going on in Russia except respond. And Putin knows I mean what I say. This is a violation of our sovereignty. our sovereignty. And if in fact it occurs, there will be response in kind. It will not go unstated, unnoticed, or unreported.
Well, I want to show you a graphic. This is the German publication Der Spiegel. This is their most recent cover. And you can see there Trump, the fire devil. A president sets his country on fire. The issues that are going on in this country regarding police violence, the violence that's going on currently by police against protesters. And
back up. Back up. I gotta see this again. Who put this together? The fire devil. The fire devil. That's definitely different.
Country regarding police violence, the violence that's going on currently by police against protesters, and to say nothing of the federal troops in unmarked gear dragging people into cars, people not even know who they are. You have a complicated relationship with the whole issue of criminal justice reform. But if you are if you are president in January, this will then be on your plate. Walk us through what a bill that comes from a Biden administration looks like in terms of reforming policing.
A bill reflects what Barack and I started in our administration. There'd be national rules set. For example, there'd be a national requirement that there are no chokeholds, a national requirement that we are able to track and trace what in fact happens in police departments. It's made public, making sure that there is a national provision that says that there has to be transparency in reporting those cases that occur.
Exactly.
And in fact, the vast majority of police are decent and honorable. But the minority is real trouble, and they're causing great difficulty for police, and they're also causing great difficulty for jurisdictions that in fact are still trying to have to maintain law and order. Every single community, Black community, Hispanic community, Asian Pacific community, Muslim community, they're looking to be safe. They do not want things to be reckless, but we have to have a circumstance where there are responsible police officers that are in charge with basic fundamental rules that in fact are stronger than the ones that are being debated in the United States Congress right now, and but in the House, provisions that are there. And I'm going to work with I've already been working with leaders of the caucus in the House to provide for the minimum standards that are required for every police department and reporting, from body cameras to be able to have complete access to whatever occurs in that operation. Making sure, for example, that the prosecutors are not the prosecutors that in fact work with the police department, but another prosecutor department. So there is no nexus between I represent him most of the time or her most of the time, but from a different agency, a different jurisdiction. And there's a lot of things we can do that in no way will damage the police in terms of their efficacy or fairness, but they're required.
Let me very quickly, we're running out of time with you, but I want to get one more question in. Most African Americans that I've talked to on a daily basis are very concerned that Black women in particular have been the heartbeat of the Democratic Party for a long time, really shored you up in places like South Carolina. Are you committed to naming a Black woman as your vice presidential running mate?
I am not committed to naming any but the people I've named, and among them there are 4 Black women. So that decision is underway right now. And by the way, Black women have supported me my entire career. You all act like all of a sudden there was an epiphany in South Carolina. I have had over a 96%, 94% rating in the state with the 8th largest Black community in the United States of America, Delaware. And so they're the ones, as that old saying goes, that brought me to the dance. I have been loyal, they have been loyal to me. And so it is important that my administration, I promise you, will look like America, both as from vice president to Supreme Court to cabinet positions to every major position in the White House. It's going to look like America. It's critically important that be the case. I can guarantee you that.
Have you narrowed down your choices?
Well, I'll tell you what's happening. We're getting the detailed analysis that is done. I've been through one of these vets, as they say. It takes about 6 weeks, and you go into everything. It's like having a public physical examination. That is just being finished. I'm having a 2-hour vetting report from the lawyers and women and men of color, as well as white folks who are doing the vetting. We've gone through about 4 candidates so far in the 2-hour vetting, and then when I get all the vetting done of all the candidates, then I'm going to narrow the list, and then we'll see. And then I'm going to have personal discussions with each of the candidates who are left.
All right. Well,
and make a decision.
Former Vice President Joe Biden, I would be mindful of your time. We are out of time. I have more questions, though. Will you come back?
I'll be happy to come back. By the way, we were thinking of you as vice president, but then you took this job. So, what can we do?
Well, I appreciate being
thank you. I wish you the best. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Really, presumptuous of me to say, I'm proud of you doing this.
Thank you.
It's a presumptuous thing to say, but it really is beyond time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Really appreciate it. Good luck with the campaign. And up next on the readout, she warned us.
He loses his cool at the slightest provocation. When he's gotten a tough question from a reporter, when he's challenged in a debate, when he sees a protester at a rally. Imagine, if you dare, imagine him in the Oval Office facing a real crisis.
My interview with 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton when the readout continues.
Had lost sight of your own well-being? Aetna never did. By setting up virtual monitoring for chronic patients, 24-hour telemedicine visits, and mental health resources for everyone, we're always here to help you focus on your health. Because it's always time for care.
Let's see what this interview now is going to be like. Well, they really laid it on her on the first day of her new job. I guess they must have felt like she could handle it.
HBO Max, where HBO meets so much more.
America, we want to help get you back.
It's a stringent regulatory review. We have data safety monitoring committees. Of course, everything goes through an ethical committee. And the quality of the vaccine that we're using is what we would normally use in any development program. And in fact, we're learning a lot more about scaling up this vaccine now that we...
That's cool. What does that tell you?
Elves, you have to. When allergic itch is a problem, ask for Apoquel. Apoquel is for...
White people are doing exactly the same thing to their children, which is to ignore how poorly they're being taught. The conditions are so extreme for so many kids all across this country. We are wasting our future. These kids are our future, and we are doing just a horrible job of educating them and preparing them. Children of all races, all Americans. Larry Elder, it's great to have you with us. Congratulations. I have never known anyone to be the executive producer of the number one documentary in all the world. So, salute, Larry. Congratulations, and thank you for being with us. We'd like to hear your thoughts on all of this. Share your...
At a federal judge. You've been through this, he went through it as well in the administration, but you were the victim of it. What would you advise the Biden campaign to do?
Well, I'm glad that Vice President Biden and his campaign are speaking out about what we know is going on and what they are learning from intelligence briefings. it's very clear that Russia succeeded. They believe that they were able to influence the minds and even the votes of Americans. So why would they stop? They really want to pursue their agenda of dividing us, undermining trust within our country, helping to elect someone who is favorable to their agenda. And if you're China, which is an easy jump to make, and you're looking at the chaos that the Trump administration has created in the world, while you're trying to assert yourself more, while you're cracking down internally on dissent, on the Uyghurs, setting up a surveillance nation, trying to dominate the South China Sea, engaged in border skirmishes with India, and all this other activity that we're watching with some concern coming out of China. Well, Donald Trump is your biggest ally. His being president with his incoherent, inconsistent foreign policy has given you a tremendous opportunity. So I am glad that Vice President Biden, with all of his experience in foreign affairs from the Senate, from being vice president, is trying to warn the American people that what happened in 2016 is sadly underway again.
Yeah, that to say nothing of putting bounties on American troops.
It's unbelievable, Joy.
Yeah.
I mean, he has still yet to say anything as the President of the United States about bounties on American troops. It's just unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. A lot of it is. I showed the Der Spiegel cover to the former vice president, but, I'll ask you this question. Having been Secretary of State, the thing that is new for me about the way the world is looking at us, the rest of the world has been angry with us during the Iraq War, has felt bullied by the United States on issues regarding their own democracies, etc. But this is new. Pity. We are seeing headlines around the world that the United States is now an object of pity. We've been kicked out of certain supply chains. Our farmers are now locked out of certain markets because of tariffs. How would you advise fixing that? Or can it be fixed? Do you think that this is a problem that will end up, dominating a lot of the foreign policy of the Biden administration, just trying to repair the relationships and our esteem in the world?
It can be repaired if we make a change in the White House starting next January. It won't be easy because we're going to have to rebuild our alliances with our friends around the world who have, as you just pointed out, been looking at us with confusion, with pity, with deep concern about what this means to the future of democracy and our relationships. We're going to have to be very clear with adversaries like Russia, Iran, China, North Korea, that we are back in the business of diplomacy, tough-minded diplomacy to try to deal with the vacuums that have been created by this administration. It will take a lot of time and effort and intensive work, Joy, but it can be done. I dare not think about what we would be left with if for some reason Trump were to be reelected, because then I think the damage to our institutions, to the rule of law, to America's unity, and to our role in the world would be much, much harder to repair.
And you're having run against Donald Trump, but even before that, I mean, Donald Trump has been sort of floating around, in elite circles and sort of touching them here and there. So Donald Trump. Are you concerned that Donald Trump will not accept the results of the election in November if he loses?
Well, he seemed to signal that with his Chris Wallace interview, didn't he? When he said he would have to wait. We have to be concerned, and I think it's something that not just the Biden campaign, but everyone in any position of responsibility on both sides of the political divide have to begin preparing for. And here's what I think that means. We need to shore up our electoral security. We need to make it possible for people to vote by mail. I'm involved in helping to support lawsuits against states that are trying to minimize or make that difficult because that's what the Trump administration wants. We have to make sure there are enough poll workers so that people can vote in person with early voting and enough places when they show up on election day. We know what needs to be done. And I think it's fair to say, Joy, that the other side does too, because clearly the strategy for re-election that Donald Trump is following is to try to make it as difficult as possible for people to vote, to have those votes counted, to sow even further distrust in our electoral system, to be in a position, if he does get repudiated on election day, to say, well, I'm not sure it was fair, and to try to drag the process out. So I take his veiled threat, I take it very seriously, and I hope that fair-minded, conscientious officials at all levels of government will do everything they can to make our elections work and to make sure that people have a chance to vote and have those votes counted.
All right, well, Secretary Clinton is going to stay with us for just a moment. And coming up on the other side of the break, can you name the 3 animals that you see on your screen right now? If you can, you might also be a stable genius.
"87 doctors in Arizona have written to their governor saying October at the earliest. Anything else would be ill-advised and dangerous." And in Florida, the Education Association is actually suing some county and state leaders over the order that they must at least offer 5-day in-person teaching. They say that would be reckless and unconscionable. Kate?
Nick, thank you. Out front with me now is the mayor of Broward County, Florida, Dale Holness. Broward is one of the hardest hit counties in the state. Mayor, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And thank you for leading by example with your mask. That is something that I love to see. The latest that we're hearing is there are currently 4 hospitals in your county that are at 100% capacity for ICU beds, and 4 others just have 1 bed available in ICU.
100% capacity. More than 50 hospitals at ICU capacity. Good God. What does that mean? That means if somebody's involved in a major car accident or a heart attack or an emergency surgery, they may not be able to get waited on, because you got too many other cases with too many beds. It's unavailable. The Word of God says that in the last days we will see great sorrows that shall fall upon the humanity because of all the wickedness and the sin of mankind. We are now in the thick of this, towards seeing great sorrows. There was great sorrows in New York and in other places in the Northeast, but they wasn't allowing for the TV screens, the TV cameras to come into various places to actually, for the viewers to get acquainted with what was actually occurring. It hasn't been until just recently that now they're starting to do that. And whenever they put out statistics like this, it's mind-boggling. It's heart-wrenching to think this many people is this sick.
Not a good sign. Are you seeing any signs that this is going to improve anytime soon?
It is definitely not a good sign. We saw large numbers today, 1,700 new cases with a positivity rate of over 17%. Where we stand today is we have 57 ICU beds available. That's about 10.9% of the 521 beds that we have available for ICU. One of our hospitals, Memorial's healthcare system, has pretty much on the siege is what they told me today. They have had to expand their ability to accommodate more patients. They're right on the line with Miami-Dade County. We've seen a large number coming from Miami-Dade. They have a much larger number of cases in total than we do. They have over 86,000 COVID cases. We have about 40,000 cases. Their numbers are usually much higher than ours. They're telling me that we must ensure that we follow the CDC guidelines. Wear facial covering at all times. We mandated that in April 11th. We further that anywhere you are, when you're interfacing with the public as of July 1st, you must wear facial covering. We know that is something that helps to prevent the spread of this disease. We must ensure that we're doing what is necessary to protect all of us.
Let me ask, what Trump has reportedly taken in the past is not especially difficult. We're back now with Secretary Hillary Clinton. And, and I mean this in all seriousness. I mean, people are giggling about his answer. But are you concerned, just based on Donald Trump's behavior, about he's needling Joe Biden about his cognitive abilities? Are you concerned about Donald Trump's?
Well, I think anybody who has watched him over the last 4 years has to be concerned, and particularly watched his total absence of leadership with respect to the pandemic. If you were really looking for somebody to try to help our country get through this terrible virus that has cost jobs and lives and disrupted our society and economy, clearly he has failed. He's failed at the most fundamental job of being a president. And so, yes, I am concerned. I'm concerned because he doesn't seem up to the job. He doesn't seem capable of having the attention, the concentration, the focus, the discipline to stay with a problem that, like the pandemic poses. He seems to be, unfortunately, impulsive in what he says and he does, which confuses a lot of people, governors, mayors, others who are trying to figure out what to do to save lives and save jobs. So I think every American who has seen him over the last 4 years, but particularly over the last 6 months with respect to the pandemic, should be concerned about him.
I think various politicians know in some degree when all this occurred in the election that this was going to turn into a circus over here in America, regardless whether it was a Republican circus or a Democrat circus. And I think they put just exactly who they wanted to be the circus clown in the seat during the time of this circus of total chaos. Total chaos. So I actually blame both sides, because they did not put a pen to the paper in trying to identify who would have truly been the best president in the past 3.5 years that we've seen Donald Trump step onto the stage. And there's no doubt that some of the things that Donald Trump has done and some of the things that he has brought to the table has been good things, pertaining to overspending, pertaining to the DACA deal, pertaining to how are we going to bail ourselves out of this problem? Because he walked into a total chaotic mess before he inherited a total chaotic mess before he ever became president. And Hillary Clinton and Biden and other people, regardless whether they be Democrats or Republicans, we all knew that. We all knew that. But we didn't realize how ecstatic or how radical that his methodology was going to turn out to be during the time of a major crisis that is now unfolding and is still unfolding here in America, with all the rioting and the COVID-19 and all the loss of jobs and everything else. So, as I sit here and watch these interviews, and of course I'm doing some news surfing as I'm doing this, as a spectator looking into the arena, I can see both sides. I can see both sides of the fundamental values of where we are, where we shouldn't have been, where we could have been, and where we're not. And I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but that's how I see what I'm seeing from a spectator point of view towards where we are right now presently with all this chaos that is disrupting in some of these major metropolitan areas. And it's really sad because both sides played a part in allowing for this to fester and to have become this far out of hand to begin with. It's really sad. And it's almost as if I blame one side as much as I do the other, because they have set back in their illegitimacies and allowed for this to get out of hand the way that it is towards being where we are. It's really upsetting. It's sad. Very sad.
I want to quickly play you a piece of video that you will remember. We're going to play it real quick.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
I want to give you a chance to respond to the fact that Donald Trump has now commuted the sentence of at least one of the people who was listening. Russia was clearly listening, but so was Roger Stone.
See, there's nothing funny about that. Why did that just make her bubble up inside and laugh about that? Because there's really nothing funny about the people that we pay good salaries towards being synchronized with the rest of the world towards various serious matters, very serious matters. And to think that regardless whether it was her or anybody else who had lost 30,000 emails should laugh about this, because it is not a laughable situation, regardless whether it was the Republicans or the Democrats. So why is she laughing about this? Let's listen to her statement.
What do you make of the commutation of his sentence?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that Stone threatened him. He probably threatened him privately, but he also threatened him publicly about what he would say if he had to go to prison. And this is a continuation of the cover-up. It's an ongoing cover-up that Trump and Stone are two of the major participants in, to try to prevent us from knowing all of the details about what they actually did in 2016. Some of it was very public. I mean, asking Russia in public to interfere in an American election, but some of it was clandestine, behind the scenes, sending messages, the kinds of things that we know about, and I think much more. So what he did was to use the awesome power of commutation as part of the pardon power of the president to basically shut up Roger Stone, so that Roger Stone would not spill any more beans about what actually happened and how much Donald Trump actually knew.
Indeed. And before I let you go, in our last few seconds, I want to give you an opportunity to speak to the legacy of your friend, Congressman John Lewis, who passed away, and who we've been celebrating and talking about all weekend. But I want to give you an opportunity. I know his support meant so much to you.
Well, his friendship, his example, his extraordinary leadership and service, Joy. I hope that Americans, as we mourn his passing, also are committed to following through with his legacy. And that, for me, would mean getting the Voting Rights Act passed. It's been passed in the House. It should be passed in the Senate. It was something that he worked on his entire life. He paid a huge price in being beaten and jailed because he believed that every American should have the right to vote and have that vote counted. I would love to see the Senate take up the Voting Rights Act from the House and rename it the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and as a fitting tribute to him, but as a continuation of his mission, his service, his work, his moral leadership. And I loved him. I just, loved him and miss him personally so very much. And I want to see the example he set really held up for years and generations to come.
Secretary Hillary Clinton, thank you so much for your time this evening. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Joy, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, the governor of Georgia, is trying to restrain her from speaking to the press. Well, she'll be here speaking with us. And another mayor at the center of the fight over deployment of federal agents into America's cities, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Both will join me next as the readout continues.
Hey, can I
Safe drives.
Well, it appears that the readout is turning into something incredible. I'm fascinated in her opponents that she's choosing today for her ground opening new job appearance. And she's doing a remarkable job.
Take 40%.
Let's go on forward here.
Cities across the country are now at the center of two.
And I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but she has, or somebody has put in a perm in her hair that I'm not quite sure of if I like that style better than the other style. But she's definitely changed her image by putting her hair in a perm. You know, those perms are very expensive. They're about $100 now. I don't know if they last any longer, but I don't know, that may be a wig. That may actually be a wig. It looks like her hair. I'm not sure, I can't call that one. Because they make wigs now to where they look so real. We'll get on with that a little later on.
Choose. The Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who's among the mayors facing threats from Donald Trump and his administration that they will send federal troops to cities run by Democrats. The Chicago Tribune has learned that the Department of Homeland Security is making plans to send some 150 federal agents to Chicago this week. The scope of their duties remains unknown. And there's Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who is trying to keep her citizens safe from coronavirus by issuing an order that people wear masks in public places. Georgia's governor, Brian Kemp, is not only suing her to roll back that mask requirement, he's also trying to keep her from even talking about it. He's asking for an injunction to, quote, restrain her from issuing statements to the press about her authority to impose such measures. Well, she's here to speak with me tonight, and Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms joins me, and also joining us is Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Thank you both for being here. And I'm going to go to you, Mayor Bottoms, first. I want to note that the state of Georgia set a single-day record in new coronavirus cases, and that would be 4,689 new COVID-19 cases, just to have the context of what we're talking about here. The governor has tried to silence you, and here is what he has said, accusing mayors like yourself who want to protect your residents with a mask requirement.
We have people, local mayors that are playing politics. They, want to go back to shelter in place. They want to, stop in-person dining with no notice, just pulling the rug out from under people. And I'm just not going to allow that to happen.
What's your response?
First of all, thank you for having me, Joy, and congratulations to you.
Thank you.
The insanity of this with Brian Kemp is that the recommendations regarding our businesses are advisory, voluntary recommendations. This governor is suing me personally for making voluntary recommendations to people on phase guidelines. And these guidelines are based on where we are with COVID. It's based on metrics. It's based on science. It's based on data. And this continuation of claiming that we are playing politics really is laughable in this state. There were many other cities, including Savannah, including Athens, Georgia, his hometown, that instituted mask policies. He did not sue them. And I don't know if it's because those cities were led by men. I don't know if it's because of my support of Joe Biden. I don't know if it's because of the demographic makeup of Atlanta, but he has taken personal exception
with our city and with me personally. And it's inexplicable given where we are in our state with COVID-19.
And what do you make of this idea that he is trying to enjoin you from speaking?
Well, my husband got a very good laugh about that. He said he should have spoken with him about that first. I think he obviously wants to silence my voice. And what is most striking, as I looked at the numbers today, Atlanta has a population of about 500,000. We have about 10 million, a little over 10 million people in this state. We have 49% of the COVID cases in the city of Atlanta. So in a time when we are in the midst of a pandemic, we need as many voices as we can have as possible, sounding the alarm, encouraging people to wear masks and to take all precautions and to follow the science and the data. And it is completely unreasonable, the course that this governor has put us on. We were one of the first states to reopen. He opened up a satellite hospital at our World Congress Center, $20+ million to do that. He took it back down. He now has to open it back up. ICU capacity in Atlanta, I think we have roughly about 13% left in capacity in Atlanta, and yet he wants to silence me.
Yeah. Let me bring Mayor Lightfoot in, because it is a different sort of challenge that you're facing with the federal government. You sent a letter, I have this letter here, that you sent to the president, to Donald Trump, regarding this decision to try to deploy federal troops like the ones that we've seen in Portland into the city of Chicago. I want to let you listen to what Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf said about your objections to sending in those troops.
And so I don't need invitations by the state mayors or state governors to do our job. We're going to do that whether they like us there or not.
To a lot of people, that sounds like tyranny, that he's going to send armed, they're not troops, they're not even military, they're like Customs and Border Protection and you know, immigration officials that they're sending in unmarked gear. What is your response?
They're the goons. They're the Goonies. Bringing in the Goonie squads. The Goonie squads goes in there and they do what needs to be done. They have the same thing in your major jail populations. You let somebody get unruly, and the next thing you know, a bunch of them put on a bunch of padded armory, mace, and everything else, and they'll bust into a pod called the Goon Squad that will settle that person down. That's basically what you're looking at. You're looking at the Goonies that's being deployed in various areas. They're federal Goonies. They are hired to go in and clean up the mess. Head knockers, coolers, call them whatever you want to call them. That's their job. They go in. The people is what is bringing these situations to a boiling point that the president has to initiate such type of actions. If the people would settle down just a little bit and try to figure out a game plan, like I told you on some of my other videos, I don't know if it's going to take a lot of reforming pertaining to people that's going to be late on their monthly payments, regardless whether it be housing, regardless whether it's their automobiles, regardless whether it's their insurance or their light bills or their food, towards distributing food lines. I mean, most bigger metropolitan areas will always have some sort of a food bank in various areas. I mean, up in Washington, D.C., they'll actually bring the food to you. And in the winter, they'll bring you covers and quilts and stuff to keep warm by. They have, most of the time in these major metropolitan areas, they have stuff like that for the unfortunate. For the ones that have fallen through the cracks because of the circumstances. Nobody wanted this coronavirus to hit. But it has hit because of the seriousness of the sin in society. Just like the Bible talks about that all these will be the beginnings of the sorrows. We are in the initiated stages of the sorrows that are being deployed upon this planet because of we the people. We the people have brought this upon ourselves.
Well, first of all, as a former federal prosecutor, I know that if resources are brought in to augment existing federal infrastructure under the control and direction of a local U.S. attorney, there might be a value add. But look at what's happened in Portland. What we have there is no advance notice to the local authorities, no notice to the local U.S. attorney's office, and having these...
You don't want to give them advance. The element of surprise so you can catch them in the act. What are you talking about? Miss Mayor, you want to catch them in the act. You want to have video towards them breaking out windows and looting and robbing. That way you can prove your case.
Armed camouflage individuals with no insignia on, no nameplates, grabbing people off the street.
They're not supposed to have no insignias on. They're the goon squads. The goon squads come in and settle things down. They're the coolers. It's the same thing as you would in the middle of a nightclub towards having bouncers in there. Does most nightclubs like to hire bouncers? No. But they know that it's a matter of essential. It's imperative that you have these big, brawly guys, sometimes big, brawly women, working in these nightclubs. That way, if things get out of hand, you got the coolers that can cool it down real quick, because they go in there and they start busting up people. Talked to one just the other day in Milan, Tennessee, and he was explaining to me how many injuries, how many broken bones that he had had. And I asked him, I said, what the heck are you doing to cause so many broken bones? He told me, he said, I'm a cooler. I'm a bouncer. He said, I go in and I break bones myself. And in breaking bones, sometimes I get bones broken. I go, in other words, you like to fight? He said, no, I like the money. So whoever that these coolers are, these bouncers are, I'm pretty sure they make pretty good money. Just like these goonies, that are these federal goonies that are being called out, I'm pretty sure they probably make pretty good money for a day or a night towards going in and busting up riots. I'm pretty sure somebody pays them pretty good money, because as they're doing what they're doing, they stand a strong chance on they themselves being broken up or shot up or even killed. It's almost like the final and last resort of what you have to do to maintain law and order. And for surely to God, you ain't going to hold up a sign and tell everybody, oh, the Goonies is coming, the Goonies is on their way. You know, that the element of surprise is always that element that is for the benefit of those who's trying to stomp out that type of violence.
That's unconstitutional. So our democracy...
Constitutional. Pertaining to safety issues? Wow. When are we going to step on the Constitution again over bringing safety and law and order to our streets so that men, women, and children can sleep good at night? This is sickening in what she's saying right now. Absolutely sickening.
Is at stake. And I'll be darned if I'm going to let anybody, even if their name is Mr. President, bring those kind of troops to our city and try to take off our residents. That's not going to happen in Chicago. And if it...
Then why don't you control your own issues? Why don't you bring the National Guard in there towards controlling these type of activities? Miss Mayor, Miss Chicago Lightfoot Mayor.
They try it, I'm going to use every tool at my disposal to stop them. We still have a constitution. We still have laws on the book, and I'm going to use those to deploy against them. We're not going to have tyranny in the city of Chicago. It's just...
You already have tyranny in the streets of Chicago, Miss Chicago Mayor. You already have tyranny in the streets of Atlanta towards having to call out the National Guard. You already have tyranny in Portland, Oregon, pertaining to them holding hostage an 8-block area. You already have tyranny in places like New York and other places where they're looting and robbing and bringing violent behavior into those areas.
That's not going to happen.
They need to take her job. They need to charge her for terrorism type sympathizing. She is a sympathizer to terrorism type activities. She needs to be charged with reckless terrorism empathy or sympathy towards the bad people. I don't know how to word that just right, but it almost come out just right. She needs to be charged, and she needs to sit down. She needs to leave her position. She needs to leave her post, because people are tired of seeing and reading the headlines, especially whenever it comes to the death of innocent children.
The things that the federal government, that the Trump administration wants to do, appear to be have the support of the police department, or at least the police union in your city. We've seen incidents like...
She is a terrorist sympathizer, and she is mad and upset because things has gotten out of control in her town, and now all of a sudden for Donald Trump to have to bring in the big guys, it makes her look bad. And because it makes her look bad, she's gonna speak out in her defense, regardless of how ignorant that she looks in the eyes of most people. Because most people would actually be welcoming federal thugs of coming in and cleaning up the dirty work that her and her administration should have handled a long time ago. That's how people are going to look at Miss Lightfoot. She is performing in a very light matter, and because of it, she knows that she has made a example out of herself and out of the people that serve under her, and because of the embarrassment and the shame, she's lashing out, but she's beating the horse on the wrong end. She should actually be kicking herself in the rear end and those that serve under her, because they did not hold down peace and order in their city. And now it's escalated into something even on a bigger scale.
Sorry?
Not our police department. We've got an unhinged leader of the Fraternal Order of Police who is craven and trying to generate attention. Now, he has asked for that, but reasonable local police officials, including our superintendent, know that this is a dangerous road for us to go down. We're not going to have people...
You're already in a dangerous road. She's in denial about her failure. She's already in a dangerous road. And yes, the fraternal police did call upon to the president of coming down there and trying to help out situations. And that is the right thing to do, especially at the expense of so many innocent lives being affected by all this. She's in the wrong by her saying what she's saying.
that don't know our streets, don't know our neighborhoods, and then are engaging in clearly unconstitutional conduct, operating at will in our city. That is chaos. That is.
This is the way I understand the Constitution. Whenever you're a lawbreaker, no one has violated your own personal constitution except yourself. It's not that no one took your rights away from you, but because you're a lawbreaker, you don't have no rights. Because now you're deemed as looked upon as being an outlaw. And the way that I understand it, outlaws don't have constitutions. Outlaws don't have rights. That's one of the problems here in America towards giving people too many rights. Especially the wrong people. Now, I'm not saying that if you're a criminal that you don't deserve certain invalidated rights pertaining to you have to be housed in a certain area, they have to provide water, and they have to provide meals and stuff like that. But by and large, whenever you're a lawbreaker, the majority of your mandatory, whatever they call them, type rights, you yourself have taken those rights away because you are now considered an outlaw. Miss Mayor, are you defending the outlaws in your city? Are you defending cold-blooded murders and cold-blooded robbers and thieves and thugs in your city? You keep in mind, I was born just outside of Cook County in Antioch County, which is just north of Cook County. I'm familiar with Chicago and the things that goes on in Cicero, hillbilly land, and down towards the Loop and up towards the major ball fields and the O'Hara airport, which is not too far from Antioch County. I'm familiar with all these things and how many people reside in your city, which is, give or take, the last I seen, several million in downtown Chicago, not counting your suburb areas. So yes, you have brought this up onto yourself, the shame, the disgrace, and now it's been called upon of moving up to a different level to try to prevent more bloodshed. It's kind of like the NRA guy that said the only way to prevent a bad person with a gun is with a good person with a gun. You have reached that boiling point now to where now the good people has to use the same tactics with the guns towards coming in and busting these mobs up, because obviously you have failed in your job, Miss Mayor. It's a disgrace. It is a freaking disgrace is what it is. And for her to get up there and to pounce on various individuals about rights and Constitution just basically tells me she's basically showing her ignorance is what she's doing. She's making herself look even that much more worse.
Lawlessness, and we are absolutely not having it.
Are you planning on filing a lawsuit?
If we need to, we will, and we will be prepared.
And Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, would you consider filing a counter lawsuit against the one filed against you?
Oh, absolutely. And like Mayor Lightfoot, we're going to fight with everything that we have. Donald Trump and his minions are the architects of chaos in this country right now. And I'm so glad to call Lori a friend. We talk as mayors quite often about the challenges that we are facing. And so we're on the front lines of this, not alone, but this will be a coordinated response from us across this country.
Yeah. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, thank you both very much. And the best of luck to you in both of these very complicated issues. And up next, Lawrence O'Donnell will be here.
All right, that's going to do it for tonight of a new program on MSNBC. The readout. Good luck to all of us. Maybe it's the readout. It ain't read. The readout. Something out. It's something that they have just developed in the past few days. And now she's on prime time. And deservedly so. Good luck to all of us. Good luck.